Welcome to Deep Thought. A major spiritual movement may emerge in the coming years. And this is something I want y'all to think about. Just really think about it. It's speculation. Of course, I don't know what happened. But one of the things, like my college degree is in history. And one of the things was just learning how to study movements, how to pay attention to it. Something I continued throughout my life, both formally educated in history, but just have an interest in paying attention to different things. And even after the pandemic, it's starting to spike back up a little bit. One of the things that happened during the last major pandemic, Spanish influenza, there was a major spiritualist type of movement, like with seances and everything. And people don't talk about it a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on that people don't talk about. And that's important to consider. But let's talk about now because, well, let me just say this real quick. You can learn a lot from history because if you really pay attention to things, history tends to move in cycles. Like when we had the George Floyd protests, uprisings, some people would say riots, people have different things. It follows what Master Yao and Yamache Morris, and I've mentioned him several times, he calls an echo. If it's a repeat of 1968. If you look at a lot of events, they tend to go in cycles and be a repeat of something that's gone before. So often you can look back and see something that's gone before and you get in, it's like, oh, okay, this might be what's coming. And it gets deeper into when it'll happen. But as they say, history repeats itself. Now, and I've been paying attention. One of the things, I don't talk about it as much, but when I was in college and really high school, because I went to a Catholic high school, and then the college I went to, that was run by the Jesuits. It was run by the Jesuits. So it was a requirement to take courses on religion. And, it's, and then looking at the history of the Jesuits in general. So I've always had an interest there. I pay attention now. Of course, I don't promote anything specific. But I have an idea and I look at how things got started. Now, I'm saying a major spiritual movement may happen. One, because there's a precedent for it, like with the Spanish influenza. But in that day and age of, well, there's several things happening. One, which is major, there are a lot of people leaving the mainstream religion, particularly the Christian church in the United States. Indeed, that's really the impetus behind many of the moves made by the quote unquote Christian nationalists. And that's a whole other conversation. But a lot of churches are being empty. There's a lot of discussion. And I've come to me, there's been some moves in other paths as well. Now, if we focus just on what happens with many people, they may leave like a church, but still say they're spiritual. And they still say they want to believe in a higher power. Very few will just leave and just say, okay, I'm just going to leave this alone totally. They just don't like the structure of what they're in. So you have that one angle. We have everything going on now because, okay, there's a lot of talk about, inflation. There's, inflation, high gas prices, high food prices, people not being able to actually afford where they live, a lot of financial instability. Now, of course, there are plenty of people touting political responses to it, and that's cool. But see, the thing is, with all of these things, you go beyond what politics can touch. Because one of the things, and you have moves by different groups to try to legislate behavior, but you can't really. You could put a law, that don't mean people are going to follow it. Like the major thing now was the repeal of Roe v. Wade. Okay, and it's been made, abortion's been made illegal or put many restrictions on it in several states, and others will keep it going with it. That don't mean it's going to stop. You're going to get a whole industry of people still want to do something. So politics can take it only so far. See, what needed to happen for the people who support the repeal, they need to be really just as much a movement dealing with the social aspects. Why are these women getting abortions to begin with? You got to deal with those social aspects. The law can only take you so far. It's just like another instance was back when they had prohibition. I mean, they legalized, they made alcohol illegal. Did it stop anything? You had speakeasies, you had the Al Capones of the world. They were still putting it out. You don't stop anything because people still want to drink. People still want to gamble. Gambling was illegal in many places. Marijuana was illegal in many places. Still is, but somebody could sell marijuana now and become businessman of the year, businesswoman of the year, business person of the year. And I want you to think about that. Think about that. People still want to engage in stuff. Now, why did I bring that up? Not so much about the political side, but the social side. That's there no matter what. What's happening with the many people is it's not working for them socially. It's not working for them. And politics, even though some people are trying to use that as a solution, only takes you so far. Like I say, you can't legislate behavior. What you can do is give people a behavioral pattern, a direction. That's the primary thing religion does. Primary thing. People could say, well, people worried about their soul after they pass and everything. Well, you have some groups that believe in reincarnation anyway. So that's not as big a deal, but they still need the social aspect. What to do, how to behave, how to act. People need that. And they need somebody to give them answers. Hence, a new spiritual movement. Because that's the one place when what we have, like in the political environment, isn't working. People say, okay, this still not helping. This not helping me deal with the situations that we have now. What can we do? All of a sudden, you get somebody and they're preaching. That's why, even within the established religions, you'll get a new church that'll pop out. I remember this past week when I'm recording this, I was at a farmer's market in Baltimore. And as we were walking, there was a street preacher right there, and maybe a good crowd. People start looking for something. So if someone on a spiritual tip say, "Hey, if you do this, it can make a change in your life. It can help you to deal with life. It can emerge, and we actually can emerge quicker than any point in history because of social media." Somebody just need an IG page. All you need is someone charismatic. I talked about charisma last week. Somebody of charismatic leadership offering a solution that looks like it makes sense and really tapping into the people who want something beyond themselves. Somebody who can give them something to help them cope with everything going on. And I can see that happening. And I said that before. In fact, I remember a discussion I had with somebody, and this wasn't even about religion. I said it's about politics. It was about politics. I said, if you got enough, because there's still a whole, even before the pandemic, even before everything going on right now, there were a lot of people unemployed. And I said, all you need is that one person, that one leader to speak up, and boom. So I'm saying this could happen on a spiritual basis or religious basis, whatever the term. If somebody comes up with something and it offers a solution to people that can help them to cope with everyday life, it can emerge. Now I'm gonna still say it can. It might not emerge, but everything is there for it. All you need is that one leader. All you need is that one leader. That's how stuff happens. That's how a lot of things happen. There, in the study of religions, of course, they typically have a holy man or woman, mostly men, let's just be real, who come up with some. If there were holy women, only place they might have some is in matriarchal environments from Africa. But that's another thing. In today's society, it's likely to be a man, could be a woman. And you get somebody who emerges and say, hey, we can do this. They don't even have to be claimed from God. They can say, hey, they don't even have to do that. They get on social media, they build a following, people following what they do. I mean, we have that now, just people, they ain't even doing a religious thing. They have a strong movement of people who are listening to every word they're saying. And then it just expands, especially with social media. Somebody could do something from their living room, literally. They could have a setup just like me and do something and build a major movement. It's not like they got to go out in public like they used to or stand on a corner. They just have to just do some videos or something now. So it's actually easy, and it's easy to spread the message. And that's something I'm paying attention to. I'm just paying attention to, because stuff like that happens on a smaller scale anyway. Stuff like that's been happening on a smaller scale. You get somebody to get a small group of people, and it can seem crazy to you, but it happens. And typically called cults. But it don't take much for, if you get something large enough, it can start affecting everything else. See, here's the thing. Whatever spiritual practice someone has, it affects how they do everything else. It affects everything else. It affects how they work, where they work, what they want to do. It affects the economy because it affects what they want to buy. Like, say if you had a major spiritual movement and everyone is vegan in the movement and it has millions of adherents, like several million. If you have a whole lot of them in certain areas, that could affect the businesses because, well, they're not buying meat. They're not buying pork. They might not be drinking or using cigarettes. That makes a major difference. It makes a major difference. What are the people practicing? So that affects everything else because that's a core thing. That's a core thing. That comes down to our core. So, and I would just say this. Like I said, it could be next week. It could be a few years from now. Or then again, nothing might emerge major. Maybe just as it always been, several little things. But when the conditions are the way they are now, and it can still get worse for many people. Like, I'll just use one example. You got so many people homeless. If somebody emerges and say, hey, look, this is what we can do about it, and this comes from God or Goddess, or shoot, even though I jokingly always say the Great Pumpkin, they could say that, which incidentally, there is a small group out there that actually literally worships the Great Pumpkin, who could get offended that I joke about it. But hey, it don't take much. When you have a situation where things are going bad for a critical mass of people, something can emerge. The only hope is that it's something of some positivity. So that's all I have for today. I want y'all to think about what I'm saying and just pay attention. Just pay attention. All right. And I'll get back with y'all later. Peace and